My daughter was in the back seat when the collision happened. I asked for insurance information. The woman laughed in my face and said, "My father owns half the law firms in this province. Go ahead and try." I gave her 1 hour to come back and apologize properly. 50 minutes later, her father was on the phone, voice shaking, begging me to name any price I wanted. Let me back up. My name's Daniel Cross, and I'm a cybersecurity consultant based out of Ottawa. Nothing fancy. I work from home, take contracts when they come, and spend the rest of my time with my 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. Her mother, my wife Rachel, passed away 2 years ago from ovarian cancer. It happened fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. Sophie was only 5, barely understood what was happening. Since then, it's been just the two of us. I turned down the big corporate offers that would have required relocation or constant travel. The money would have been excellent, but I'd already lost Rachel. I wasn't about to lose time with Sophie too. I drive a 2015 Subaru Outback, paid off 3 years ago. It's got a dent in the rear quarter panel from when I backed into a post, and the passenger side mirror is held on with some creative zip-tie work after a hit and run in a grocery store parking lot last winter. But it's reliable, safe, and it's mine. No payments, no stress. That Friday afternoon, I'd picked Sophie up early from school for a dentist appointment. Afterward, we stopped at the Loblaws on Bank Street to grab groceries for the weekend. Sophie was excited because I'd promised we could make homemade pizza that night, her favorite. We loaded the bags into the back. Sophie climbed into her booster seat, already asking if she could put pepperoni on her half. I was laughing, telling her we'd make it extra cheesy, when I heard the revving engine behind us. Then the impact. Not hard enough to deploy airbags, but solid. The whole car lurched forward. I whipped around and saw Sophie's eyes go wide with shock, her mouth forming a small O. She wasn't hurt, I could see that immediately, but she was scared. "It's okay, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was hammering. "We're fine. Just stay in your seat for a second, all right?" She nodded, but I could see her hands trembling. I got out and walked to the back of my car. There was a fresh dent in the bumper, paint scraped off. Behind me was a brand new white Tesla Model X, maybe 2 months old, judging by the temporary plates. The front end had a small crack in the bumper, barely noticeable. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a young woman, mid-20s, wearing Lululemon from head to toe and designer sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She had her phone in her hand, still recording. "Oh my God," she said, but her tone was performative, like she was narrating for her video. "I totally just backed into someone. This is so crazy." She walked over, glanced at my Subaru, and I watched her expression change in real time. Her eyes swept from the zip-tied mirror to the existing dent to my jeans and hoodie. I saw the calculation happen. Older car, casual clothes. This wasn't going to be a problem for her. "Look, I'm really sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "But honestly, it's barely a scratch. Your car already has damage anyway." She pulled out her wallet and fished out some bills. "Here's $300. That should more than cover it." "I don't want cash," I said evenly. "I need your insurance information." She lowered her sunglasses, looking at me like I'd just said something ridiculous. "Are you serious right now? It's a tiny dent. $300 is generous." "My daughter is in that car," I said, pointing to Sophie's face pressed against the window. "She's shaken up. This isn't about the dent. This is about doing things properly. Insurance information, please." The woman's expression hardened. She glanced back at her Tesla, then at me, then seemed to make a decision. "Do you have any idea who my father is?" she asked, her voice shifting into something colder. "Cameron Ashford. Ashford and Associates. They handle corporate law for half the major firms in Ontario. My dad has more lawyers on retainer than you probably know exist." I just stared at her. "So here's how this works," she continued, her confidence building. "You can take the $300 and we forget this happened. Or you can try to pursue this, and I promise you, you'll spend more on legal fees than your car is worth. My father will bury you in paperwork. You'll be dealing with this for years." I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. "I'm recording this conversation. You just admitted to hitting my vehicle and are now threatening me with legal action if I pursue proper channels. Can you repeat your name for the record?" Her face flushed red. "Are you actually threatening me?" "I'm documenting. There's a difference." "You know what?" She shoved the cash back in her wallet. "Good luck with your little recording. I'm sure it'll hold up really well when my father's legal team gets involved. She pulled out her phone and typed something quickly, then turned the screen toward me. It was a text message. Hit some loser's car. He's trying to make a thing of it. She hit send while I watched, then looked at me with a smirk. That's going to my dad right now. So you have fun with whatever you think you're going to do. She started walking back to her Tesla. You have 1 hour, I called after her. She stopped and turned. What? 1 hour. Come back here and apologize to my daughter properly. That's all I want. Admit you made a mistake. Say you're sorry for scaring her, and we can figure out the insurance like adults. She laughed. Actually threw her head back and laughed. Oh, that's adorable. You think I'm coming back? Buddy, I've got a dinner reservation at Riviera in 90 minutes. I'm not wasting my evening on this. She got in her Tesla and drove away. I stood there for a moment, then got back in my car. Sophie was crying softly. Hey, I said, reaching back to squeeze her hand. We're okay. Everything's fine. Why was that lady mean? She asked, voice small. Because some people haven't learned important lessons yet, I told her. But that's not your problem. How about we go home and make that pizza? She nodded, wiping her eyes. We drove home. I got Sophie set up with her coloring books in the living room, then went to my office and closed the door. Here's the thing about cybersecurity work. You develop certain skills. You learn how to find information. You understand digital footprints. You know where people leave traces of themselves online, often without realizing it. I pulled up the photo I'd taken of her license plate, ran it through a service I have access to for work purposes, got the registration information. Vehicle registered to Cameron Ashford, with an address in Rockcliffe Park, one of Ottawa's wealthiest neighborhoods. Secondary driver listed Victoria Ashford. 26 years old, according to a quick search. Her social media profiles were public. Instagram showed exactly what I expected. Luxury lifestyle content, photos at expensive restaurants, designer shopping bags, vacation shots from the Maldives 3 weeks ago. Her bio read, Living my best life, Daddy's girl. I scrolled through her recent posts. 2 hours ago, she'd posted a photo of herself in her Tesla with the caption, New baby is perfect number, Tesla life number. Blessed. The comments were mostly friends hyping her up. But I noticed something else. Several posts over the past few months showed her at various events, always tagging her father's law firm. In one photo from a charity gala, she was standing next to a distinguished-looking man in his late 50s, Cameron Ashford himself. I did a deeper search on Cameron Ashford and Ashford and Associates. The firm was big. Commercial real estate law, corporate mergers, high-profile civil litigation. They represented several major developers and corporations throughout Ontario and Quebec. Cameron Ashford was a name partner, been practicing for 30 years, graduated from Osgoode Hall Law School. But I also found something interesting. 3 months ago, there was a small news item about Ashford and Associates being shortlisted for a major government contract, providing legal services for a new infrastructure initiative worth approximately $3 billion over 5 years. The federal government was taking bids from several firms. The announcement of the winning firm was scheduled for the following Tuesday, 4 days away. These government contracts always came with strict ethical requirements. Any hint of impropriety, any suggestion that a firm couldn't be trusted to represent public interests, and they'd be disqualified immediately. I kept digging. Victoria had a history. Nothing that made major news, but if you knew where to look, you could find it. A sealed settlement from 18 months ago, I couldn't access the details, but the court filing number was associated with a personal injury case. The defendant was listed as Victoria Ashford. Another case from 3 years ago, also sealed, also involving Victoria. This wasn't her first hit and run. It was just the first time someone hadn't accepted Daddy's money to make it go away. I found Victoria's TikTok account. She had about 80,000 followers. Her content was mostly lifestyle stuff, but what caught my attention was a video she'd posted 4 days ago. It showed her filming inside what was clearly her father's law office. I recognized the firm's logo on a document in the background. The video was captioned, Lunch with Daddy at Work, but that document in the background. I took a screenshot, enhanced the image. It was a briefing document labeled Confidential, Infrastructure Bid, Eyes Only. That was a problem. Government contracts like this required strict confidentiality during the bidding process. You couldn't discuss details publicly, couldn't share documents, couldn't do anything that might give the appearance of impropriety or security issues. And Victoria had just broadcast it to 80,000 people. I doubted anyone had noticed yet. The video had only a few thousand views, and the document was barely visible. But it was there. I compiled everything into a folder. Screenshots of her social media posts, the collision photos, the audio recording from the parking lot, the court filing numbers from her previous incidents, and the TikTok video showing the confidential document. Then I did something I don't usually do. I reached out to an old contact. 8 years ago, before I went freelance, I worked for a private security firm that contracted with government agencies. I still had connections with people in the Public Services and Procurement Canada office, the department handling the infrastructure contract bid. I sent a carefully worded email to a compliance officer I'd worked with before, a woman named Margaret Chen. The subject line was, Potential Security Concern, Infrastructure Legal Services Bid. The email was professional, factual. I explained that I'd become aware of a possible confidentiality breach involving one of the bidding firms and attached the relevant screenshots. I made no demands, implied no threats, just thought this should be brought to your attention, given the sensitive nature of the contract. I CC'd the email to 2 members of Ashford and Associates Board of Directors. Their names were listed on the firm's website. Then I created a draft email addressed to 3 Ottawa area journalists who covered legal affairs and government contracts. I wrote out everything that had happened, attached all the evidence, but I didn't send it, just saved it as a draft. I checked my watch. 40 minutes since the collision. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mr. Cross? The voice was male, older, strained. My name is Cameron Ashford. I believe you had an incident with my daughter this afternoon. That's correct. I want to start by apologizing on her behalf. Victoria tells me there was a misunderstanding in a parking lot. She's very sorry for any inconvenience. That's not what happened, I said calmly. Your daughter backed into my vehicle while my 7-year-old daughter was inside. When I asked for insurance information, she refused, threatened me with legal action, and drove away. But I'm sure you know all this, Mr. Ashford. I expect you've already received the email I sent to Margaret Chen at Public Services and Procurement Canada. There was a long pause. Mr. Cross, I think perhaps we should discuss this in person. I'm certain we can reach an understanding. I gave your daughter 1 hour to come back and apologize to my daughter properly. That was my only request. We're now at 42 minutes. I understand you're upset. I'm not upset, Mr. Ashford. I'm teaching my daughter a lesson about consequences. Your daughter made a choice. She chose to be cruel to a scared child, chose to flaunt her privilege, chose to drive away. I'm simply ensuring that choice has appropriate consequences. What do you want? His voice had changed. The professional veneer was cracking. I'll write you a check right now. $20,000. $50,000. Just tell me what you want. I want your daughter to come back and apologize to my daughter. That's all I've ever wanted. She's on her way, he said quickly. She'll be there in 15 minutes. But Mr. Cross, I need you to understand something. That email you sent, the one about the TikTok video that could destroy my firm's reputation, we've spent 3 months preparing the bid for that infrastructure contract. If we lose it over something my daughter posted thoughtlessly, it affects 60 employees and their families. Then perhaps your daughter should think about consequences before she posts confidential documents on social media. Mr. Cross, please, I'm begging you. Name any reasonable figure. I'll transfer it immediately. Just delete those draft emails. Let this go. I don't want your money, Mr. Ashford. Then what? What can I possibly give you? You can teach your daughter the same lesson I'm teaching mine right now. That actions have consequences. That wealth doesn't exempt you from basic human decency. That when you scare a child and then mock their parent, there should be a cost. She's coming to apologize. What more do you want? I want to believe the apology is genuine. I want to know this means something to her. So here's what's going to happen. Your daughter is going to come here and apologize directly to my daughter. She's going to explain why what she did was wrong. And then you and I are going to have a conversation about how we ensure this behavior changes. And the emails are still drafts. Whether they stay drafts depends entirely on this conversation. What kind of conversation? The kind where we discuss accountability. Victoria's had at least 2 prior incidents that your firm settled quietly. This is a pattern, Mr. Ashford. Your money has been enabling her to hurt people without consequence. That ends today." He was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" "I want a written commitment." Victoria completes a defensive driving course. She volunteers 40 hours at a children's charity, and I mean real volunteering, not just showing up for photo ops. She makes a public apology on her social media, acknowledging what happened today, without naming me or my daughter, but taking full responsibility. And she pays for the repairs to my vehicle, not you. She uses her own money. She doesn't have. Then she gets a job and earns it. I don't care if it takes her 6 months. She pays for what she broke. Another long pause. And if I agree to all this, then the drafts stay drafts. Margaret Chen gets a follow-up email saying I was mistaken about the severity of the confidentiality concern. Your board members get an apology for the false alarm, and you get to keep your reputation. How do I know you won't send those emails anyway? Because unlike your daughter, Mr. Ashford, my word actually means something. I'm not interested in destroying lives. I'm interested in making sure my daughter grows up in a world where people are held accountable for their actions. If you commit to changing Victoria's behavior, genuinely commit, then I have no reason to pursue this further. I heard him exhale slowly. She's almost there. When she apologizes, you'll delete the drafts? When she apologizes sincerely, and when you and I reach an agreement in writing, yes, I'll write it up immediately and email it to you. Good. Your daughter has 12 minutes. I hung up. Sophie came to the office door. Dad, when are we making pizza? Soon, sweetie. Very soon. Someone's coming by first. Remember the lady from the parking lot? Her expression changed. The mean lady? She's coming back to say she's sorry. I want you to listen to what she has to say, okay? And then you can decide if you accept her apology. It's completely up to you. Sophie nodded seriously, understanding this was important somehow. 11 minutes later, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I looked out the window. The white Tesla. Victoria got out, and behind her, Cameron Ashford stepped out of a black Mercedes that had pulled up behind her. I opened the door before they could knock. Victoria looked like she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged. Her sunglasses were gone. She looked younger suddenly, less confident. "Mr. Cross," Cameron said, extending his hand. I shook it. He was tall, well-dressed, in a suit that probably cost $3,000, but his eyes were tired. "Thank you for agreeing to see us." Victoria stood slightly behind her father, looking at the ground. "Sophie," I called into the house. "Can you come here, please?" My daughter came to stand beside me, and I put my hand on her shoulder. Victoria glanced up, saw Sophie, and her face crumpled slightly. "Hi," Victoria said, her voice small. "I'm Victoria. I'm the person who hit your dad's car today." Sophie didn't say anything, just pressed closer to my leg. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," Victoria continued. "I was on my phone when I was backing up, and I wasn't paying attention, and I hit your car. That must have been really scary for you. And then when your dad tried to talk to me about it, I was really rude and mean. I said things I shouldn't have said. I left without making sure you were okay, and that was wrong." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "My dad explained to me that you were really scared, and that your mom passed away a couple years ago, and that your dad is working really hard to take care of you by himself. I didn't know any of that when I left, but even if I had known, it wouldn't excuse how I acted. I was selfish and thoughtless, and I'm truly sorry for frightening you, and for being unkind to your dad." Sophie looked up at me. I nodded encouragingly. "Okay," Sophie said quietly. "I accept your apology." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. That's really generous of you." Cameron stepped forward. "Mr. Cross, might we speak privately for a moment?" I looked at Sophie. "Go pick out what toppings you want on your pizza, okay? I'll be there in a few minutes." She nodded and went back inside. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. Cameron handed me his phone. On the screen was a typed document. I read through it. Everything I'd asked for was there, laid out clearly. Defensive driving course, registered and paid for. Starting the following Monday. 40 hours of volunteer work at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario with verification requirements. A public apology to be posted within 24 hours. And a payment plan for the vehicle repairs, coming from Victoria's personal account, with her father as guarantor but no co-signer. "This is acceptable," I said. I'll have it formally drawn up and signed by both Victoria and myself. You'll have the executed copy by Monday morning. And she understands this isn't optional? She understands. Cameron glanced at his daughter, who was standing by her car, arms wrapped around herself. Mr. Cross, can I ask you something? When you sent those emails, you could have gone directly to the journalists. You could have destroyed everything immediately. Why didn't you? Because destruction wasn't the point. Change was the point. If I destroyed your firm, Victoria would have learned that the world is cruel and unfair. Instead, I want her to learn that actions have consequences, but also that people can choose mercy when accountability is offered. He looked at me for a long moment. You have a background in security work? I do. We could use someone with your skills. Our firm's cybersecurity protocols need updating. If you're interested, I'd like to discuss a consulting contract. I appreciate the offer, but no. This isn't about networking or opportunities for me, Mr. Ashford. This is about making sure your daughter becomes a better person. Don't try to pay me. Don't try to turn this into a business relationship. Just keep your word. He nodded slowly. I will. You have my word. Then we're done here. Victoria approached hesitantly. Mr. Cross, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but are you going to delete those emails? The ones you drafted? I looked at her directly. If you complete everything in that agreement, genuinely complete it, not just go through the motions, then yes, those drafts will be deleted and you'll never hear from me again. But Victoria, if I find out you've done something like this to someone else, if you've hurt another person because you think your father's money makes you untouchable, those drafts get sent immediately. Do you understand? I understand. Good. They left. I watched them drive away, then went back inside. Sophie was in the kitchen, looking at the pizza ingredients laid out on the counter. Dad, why did that lady come back? I sat down at the table and pulled her onto my lap. Because sometimes people make mistakes, and when they do, they have to fix them. She made a mistake this afternoon by being unkind, so she came back to fix it by apologizing. Did you make her come back? I gave her the opportunity to do the right thing. That's different from making someone. She could have chosen not to come, but if she hadn't, there would have been consequences. That's how the world works, Sophie. When we make choices, especially choices that hurt other people, those choices have results. Mommy used to say that, Sophie said quietly. She did. Your mom believed very strongly that people should be kind and take responsibility for their actions. Do you think the lady will be nicer now? I hope so. I think she learned something today. But here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to accept someone's apology just because they give one. When she apologized, you could have said no. That would have been okay too. The important thing is that people acknowledge when they've done wrong and try to make it right. But whether you forgive them, that's always your choice. Sophie thought about this. I think I'm glad I said okay. Why's that? Because she looked really sad. And I think maybe she didn't know she was being mean until someone told her. I hugged my daughter close, feeling my chest tighten. 7 years old, and she already understood something that took many adults a lifetime to learn. You know what? I said. I think you're exactly right. Now, how about that pizza? We spent the rest of the evening making dinner together, watching a movie, and reading bedtime stories. Sophie asked no more questions about what happened. For her, it was resolved. The scary thing had happened. The mean person had apologized, and now life continued. But I lay awake that night thinking about the lesson in all of this, not just for Victoria, but for Sophie. My daughter had lost her mother too young. She'd watched me struggle through grief while trying to be strong for her. She knew that life could be unfair, that bad things happen to good people, that sometimes there were no explanations for why we lose the people we love. But I wanted her to also know that within that unfair world, there were still rules that mattered, that respect mattered, that consequences existed for those who chose cruelty, that power, whether it was money, connections, or knowledge, should be used to protect people, not to hurt them. Victoria's father had spent years using his wealth and influence to shield his daughter from accountability. Every settlement, every sealed case, every time he'd written a check to make a problem disappear, he'd taught her that she was exempt from the rules the rest of us lived by. But tonight, for the first time, Victoria learned differently. Monday morning, the executed agreement arrived via courier. Cameron Ashford had kept his word. Every detail was there, legally binding, notarized. Tuesday afternoon, Victoria posted on Instagram. The caption read, "I need to own up to something. Last Friday, I hit someone's car in a parking lot. Their daughter was in the back seat and I scared her badly. Instead of handling it properly, I was rude and thoughtless. I drove away without making sure everyone was okay. That was wrong, and I'm deeply sorry. I'm taking steps to be a better, more responsible person. This is my public accountability. If you've followed me for a while, you've probably seen me post some pretty entitled stuff. I'm working on changing that. Actions have consequences, and I'm committed to facing mine." The post had over 2,000 comments within an hour. Most were supportive, some were critical, but she left it up. Wednesday, I received an email from Margaret Chen at Public Services and Procurement Canada, thanking me for bringing the potential issue to her attention and confirming that upon further review, the concern appeared to be minimal. The document visible in the video had been generic briefing material, not classified details. She appreciated my diligence but confirmed no action was needed. I replied thanking her for her time and apologizing for the unnecessary alarm. Thursday, the Ashford and Associates board members received similar emails from me, explaining that I'd misunderstood the severity of the situation and apologized for any concern. Friday morning, exactly 1 week after the collision, a tow truck arrived to take my Subaru to a body shop. The repairs were authorized and paid for in full. The paperwork listed Victoria Ashford as the responsible party. I never heard from them again. But 6 months later, I saw something that made me smile. I was scrolling through local news when I came across a photo from a children's hospital fundraiser. There was Victoria Ashford, volunteering at a table, talking with a young girl who was holding a stuffed animal. She wasn't posing for the camera. She wasn't wearing designer clothes. She was just there, present, engaging with the child. The caption mentioned she'd been volunteering at the hospital for several months and had helped organize the event. I showed Sophie the photo. "Remember the lady who apologized to you?" Sophie looked at the picture. "She looks different." "She does, doesn't she? She looks nicer." "I think maybe she is nicer. I think she learned something important." Sophie nodded thoughtfully. "Good, because everybody should be nice." Out of the mouths of children. The thing is, I could have destroyed Cameron Ashford's firm. I could have sent those emails to the journalists, tanked his government contract bid, made his family name synonymous with scandal. The evidence was there. The leverage was real. But revenge isn't justice. Revenge is about making yourself feel better by making someone else feel worse. Justice is about restoration, about changing behavior, about making the world a little bit better than it was before. Victoria needed to learn accountability, not humiliation. Her father needed to understand that wealth couldn't substitute for parenting, and my daughter needed to see that standing up for yourself doesn't mean destroying others, it means insisting they meet you at the level of basic human decency. The repairs to my Subaru cost $1,800. Victoria paid it in 3 installments over 2 months. The first check had a note attached. "I got a part-time job. It's taking longer than I thought to earn this," which I guess is the point. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Victoria." I kept that note, because that's what this was always about. Not the dent in my bumper. Not the money. Not even the apology, really. It was about a 26-year-old woman learning that she wasn't above consequences. It was about a 7-year-old girl seeing her father stand up for what was right without becoming cruel himself. It was about teaching both of them, and maybe myself too, that power is most meaningful when it's exercised with restraint. The world is full of people like Victoria used to be. People who've never been told no. People who believe their advantages make them superior. People who've hurt others without ever having to face what they've done. And the world is also full of opportunities to either continue that cycle or break it. I chose to break it, not with a hammer, but with a mirror. I held up a reflection and said, "This is who you're being. Now choose who you want to become." That's the lesson I wanted Sophie to learn. That's the lesson Victoria needed to learn. And maybe that's the lesson we all need to remember. You can wield power like a weapon, or you can wield it like a teacher's hand firm, but ultimately there to guide towards something better. I chose the latter. And I'd make that choice again. Because at the end of the day, when Sophie asks me what kind of person she should be, I want to be able to say, be someone who stands up for what's right, but also be someone who believes in second chances. Be strong enough to hold people accountable, but compassionate enough to let them grow. That's justice. That's integrity. and that's worth more than any amount of money someone could offer to make a problem disappear.